is. There's always that momentary thing is YouTube really going to go live or is it just going to pretend? But it looks like we are.
So that's where everybody else is watching.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
I get it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are live, so I'll go ahead and get going. Hello, my name is KatmanU, Psychic Wrangler and Psychic Empath. Welcome to Third Eye Salon. If this is your first time or you're a repeat offender, we are very happy that you're here with us. So this is a show where in each and every week, we take a fresh look between the veils of reality and what we call reality. And today we're looking between the veils of Michael Tamura's NDEs, as well as how he has brought and is bringing back heaven to earth. So before we meet Michael, I do want to say, hey, hello, Linda Coulter-Burge. How are you? Psychic friend, conscious business coach, and co-hostess with the mostest. I love you. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome this morning. I'm really excited about our guests and meeting with everyone again. And I'm already seeing people joining in on the chat for our live stream. So I love when you guys show up and that we actually have some great conversations. Be sure you ask your questions there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure that little bell is black and then you get notified of everything that we do. So in case you don't catch it on our Facebook group, which I also love that you're there, join us on our Facebook group. Thank you all for buying cups of coffee and for joining in some of our special events that have happened. I look forward to our conversation with Michael and Raphael and with our other special co-hosts.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. And let's say hello to Sharon Kumara. Sharon has been on our show a couple of times. I shared her ND experiences as well as her ET and otherworldly connections. How are you, Sharon?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Kat. And I'm really, really excited and honored to be here with, man, such amazing people. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then we have our other co-host, Angela Anderson. She's with us, artist, motorcycle mechanic, former software engineer, and channeler of oneness. Welcome, Angela.
Hey, good morning, guys. I am so excited to be here. I started prepping for the show earlier this week, and every night I went to sleep, I had a dream of being in a classroom with Michael. So I'm excited to see what happens. I can't recall anything from the dream other than the fact that I was in a classroom. So I'm excited to see what happens. What gets going today. So yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Yeah, so Raphael is also with us as well. I don't have a bio for her, but I can let you know that she is an animal communicator, and just if you've seen her face, you're like, oh, Angel, she's an angelic being. That's how I take her. But let me give you Michael's bio so we can hop into the conversation, because I know that we're all kind of chomping at the bit to get going. So spiritual teacher, clairvoyant visionary, radio show host and author of You Are the Answer, Michael Tamura lives the miracle. Spiritually aware from childhood, he sees you the way you are as immortal souls. To guide thousands to their healing, awakening, and true purpose, he draws from years of intensive training, past life recall, nightly out-of-the-body sojourns, 48 years of teaching and giving clairvoyant counseling, and a lifetime of extraordinary experiences, including returning from death 5 times. The award-winning author of You Are the Answer teaches psychic tools and spiritual practices to awaken souls. Michael and his wife, Raphael, also host their own weekly radio show, Living the Miracle, on the Voice America Talk Radio Network. So welcome, Michael, Raphael. Welcome, Raphael. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I wanted to hop in and ask you, because you were born, spiritually aware. And in the interviews I've watched with you, I haven't really seen you talking about what that was like to be a kid who was awake. So I'm wondering what that was like.
Well, the parts, there's great parts and difficult parts. The difficult parts were not understanding that it took me a long time to figure out that everyone wasn't like me. My experience wasn't exactly the same as most of the people around me. And so, but that helped me become very interested in communication. You know, looking back, everything I have, of all the psychic abilities, my greatest psychic ability is retrocognition. Everybody, you know, thinks, oh yeah, if you're psychic, you see the future and all that kind of stuff. Well, I don't do much of that. And I don't bend forks and all that stuff, because I tried bending chopsticks as a kid, you know, mentally, but they just kept on breaking. Anyway. But retrocognition is usually about 20 to 30 years after I experience something. I look back at that experience and I know all about it. and that's been the way it is. And when I was a child, looking back at that time, I realized, oh yeah, my challenges of getting people to understand what I'm saying and being able to have communication with people played a huge part in me really paying attention to communication, all forms of communication. I've loved languages from the time I was a little kid. I love music. I love all forms of communication. And I've been interested in communicating. So it helped me over the course of years to be able to communicate with people on many different levels. And then as I start to teach, when I was 21 years old, more officially teach, I realized, oh yeah, the real communication is the spirit to spirit communication. You know, it's like when I first went to India, everybody greets you, you know, namaste. And what does that mean? Well, on the one hand, it means just like, hello, you know, nice to see you. But there's a deeper meaning that I found. It means the divinity within me, or the spirit or the light within me, welcomes and greets the light within you. And I said, well, that's what I've been teaching all along, is spirit to spirit communication means being able to recognize yourself as that light, that spirit, and you're the one saying hello to the other light, the other spirit in that other body. The only thing that's other about it is the body. We're not in the same body. We're experiencing things in a different body, but we're the same light. We're the same spirit. There's only one spirit. So in a sense, spirit to spirit communication is being able to talk to yourself as the spirit that you are. And as you do so, you start to break down the barriers that we all tend to build up over our course of especially over a course of a lifetime, until we start to reverse that process by learning to communicate with each other as the same spirit. Then all the blockades and fortresses that we build around our sensitivities and areas where we've been traumatized and pain, you know, experience pain and suffering, we start to go, maybe it's all right. Maybe it's all right to communicate and be at one with each other, because that's where we are to start with. Only the outsides looks different, acts different, and because everyone has this, spirit is limitless, and as a limitless being and a fully, totally creative being, we get to express our creativity in unlimited number of ways. And yeah, some of it from another perspective, we don't like it. Others of it, we love it. But nonetheless, it's still the same spirit expressing itself through a different avenue. So that's what got me started from early childhood, is not being understood, not being recognized. And everyone seemed to be communicating completely in a like a different language, different universe. And the funny thing too, I didn't realize this when I was a kid, but much later on, when I review my life in different areas, it's interesting. A lot of people, the first thing they talk about after coming back from a near-death experience is, oh, the panoramic life review. I didn't have, in my 5 experiences, I never had that. And I was wondering, how come I never had that life review? Well, I do that almost all the time here.
With your retrocognitive stuff, you can just give yourself a life review and be like, oh, that they're there.
Yeah. And so it's not quite the same as when you actually have it there when you cross over and everything. But enough of it's done. So I'm on the right track there. And so when I do my little life reviews, I realize as a child, so much of my memory of what happened, what I experienced, wasn't in the body. Oftentimes, my memory is one from about 10 to 15 feet above my body, looking down and looking at everyone saying, hey, I'm up here. Why are you talking to the body down there? That's not where I'm at. And but at the time, I didn't understand that. Yeah, I just felt, like a lot of kids, when you don't have an idea what people, especially adults, and actually other kids too, are saying to you, because they're totally relating to you as a body. And I'm totally out of the body, well, not totally, but quite a bit out of the body, which from the body perspective, you get, what would you say? Klutzy, right? Uncoordinated, you bump into walls because you're not quite present in the physical world, so that you don't notice things here. And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of where you came in from, I know there's no time when we talk about, the past life, the life you just had or whatever, but linearly, that could be what we would even say the future, but I'm curious what incarnation you came in from that you brought in this awareness with you, because it makes me think of, the Dalai Lama or, big teachers like that, I'm not just saying, it's like they come in and they have a memory of like, oh yeah, I'm here to teach this, I'm here to teach that, because the continuity was never broken from coming in within the incarnation, that the veil didn't come down. So I'm wondering if you have a sense of what lifetime you came in from, that you were like you were so connected when you came in.
Well, it's not that the veil didn't come down, or, because it's not the kind of awareness of knowing and seeing everything, the whole thing. It's just being aware of certain things, like the other thing is, there's no such thing as continuity. That's a physical experience of being here in time and space. Then there's a continuity of this happened first and then this happens next. In spirit, there's no time, so everything is all the time, instantly, right? So that's the difficult thing I think a lot of people experience in their creative process here of manifesting things, is we all create as spirit. We don't create as bodies. Bodies are not creative. If bodies were creative, you can go to the morgue and those bodies would be creating stuff. But no, once we're not in the body, once spirit isn't breathing life into the body, we call it a corpse. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't feel anything. It doesn't see anything. It's not creative. So who's the creator here in the body is the spirit. We are that spirit. So when we create anything, which starts with just imagination, once we imagine something, oh, we've created it. Instantly, the entire thing that we imagine is done in spirit. Now, we have this unique ability to decide what of that which we imagined in spirit would we like to manifest here in time and space. When we make that decision, yes, I'm going to bring it to here. Then it takes time. And that manifestation unfolds in time and space, over time and space. Even when somebody has that miraculous experience of boom, something materializes right in front of you as soon as you think about it. That's not even instantaneous manifestation, even though it seems like it, but there was a couple of beats, right? A moment or two before the thing shows up. You already had it in full in spirit. And all the way to sometimes you imagine something in your mind, in spirit, and then it takes you years for it to unfold and fully manifest here in the world. Most people don't realize that, so they get impatient. And before what they already created in spirit, in eternity, in an instant, from beginning to end, they don't let it mature and unfold here fully. They invalidate themselves. Oh, it didn't work. I failed. Like that. And so they never bring it to fruition. So in terms of lifetimes, at any given moment here in time and space, we are the sum total of all of our lifetimes. Period. So you don't have to try to go back into past to figure out what you were. You have to be in the present to know what you did in any lifetime. So in my case, it was, when was it? I was starting to write my book. And because I remember I was on a very ancient computer back then. And all of a sudden, I'm totally out of my body. I'm not aware of this lifetime. I'm totally going through my experience of dying in Hiroshima with the atomic blast. That was my most recent, in the chronological order, that's my most recent past life. And I was about a 7-year-old girl in Hiroshima, ground zero, and holding hands with my mom at that time. And I see the light, and then I see the other light. And after that experience of vaporizing on a physical level, I happen to be one of the souls that was much more aware of how to die from this physical world into spirit. And so I wasn't freaked out or anything. And I find myself in this kind of a blue-gray space. And my number one spirit guide shows up. And again, once you get out of here, there's not even a concept of death. You don't think about it. You don't think, once you're out of the body, you don't think, oh, gee, did I die or I'm dead? It's just like, okay, business as usual. It's just like going from one room to the next room, and I got work to take care of. So the spirit guide shows up and it says, okay, well, what would you like to do? You want to keep going up, so to speak? And I said, no, I'm here to help the people who are having a really big difficulty after they crossed over. They don't even know they crossed over. It was so I got to experience in spirit what made the dying by atomic explosion so different than dying from, I mean, people were dying all the time from, bombs and fire bombs and all kinds of stuff. Completely different, because those people who had their one moment, they're, mowing their lawn or whatever, next moment, they're vaporized. That doesn't do much to spirit. Spirit is immortal. You can't hurt it. But the consciousness that the souls were at that moment, they believed they were the body. This is my life. I am so and so, and I look like this, and this is what I do, and that's my life. This is where I live. So all those souls who believed they were the body, well, they're gone. As far as they're concerned, where am I? I mean, they're still conscious, but they're not aware that they're aware. Yeah, they're aware that, where am I? I'm one moment I'm here, and next moment I'm gone. And so they're freaking out. It looked like the Night of the Living Dead in this blue gray zone of souls who no longer was in the body, but they're traumatized, mentally, psychologically traumatized. And they're just like wandering around, not knowing what happened, where they are, what they're going to do. It's complete chaos. So that's where I was, tending to, being a healer, so to speak. Healer never dies. And so I'm tending to the souls that no longer had the bodies, that needed to have healing to move on. And then some of the souls that were remaining, in pretty bad shape and very, very scared, very, very traumatized in the bodies. And so like a healing spirit guide, right? And so that was my real purpose for that lifetime. It's not that's why I died when I was 7 years old. It's not for the physical life, but I had to get into the physical life to be able to get to this in between place.
Michael, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So most people have an NDE experience, and it's like a pivot point. It's like a redirection, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've
Yes.
experienced 5. And my question to you is, what do you think the overall lesson for you or goal was for you in experiencing 5 NDEs? Was like the first, the pivot point, the turning point for you?
No.
Not being already open, but just expound on what the overall gist is for 5 NDEs, not just 1, but 5.
I was greedy. No, it's fun that you say it's a pivot point, which is, spinning. I guess I wanted to be, in spirit, I wanted to be a ballerina and learn how to do to keep on pivoting. No, unlike everyone I've ever talked to who had a near-death experience, and any books I've read or whatever about people with near-death experiences, it seems that exactly what you say is when they had their near-death experience, it was a pivot. It was a wake-up call, right? It's like, wow, I was going this way, and now I have to come back and I have to go this way.
Right.
For me, it wasn't anything like that, because I've had out-of-body experiences all my life, and I had total certainty in spirit and all that stuff. So that was not the question about my near-death experience. The very first one was because I was in such excruciating pain. I had this thing called traveling gout. And it just went on and on and on and on. And I was just being worn out. And so I'm practically in a fetal position on the bed, but I can't even lie down. The pain was so, every joint, every crevice in my bone system was just like being slaughtered. So finally, I'm getting so weak. Raphael had to go into town to get something, and I'm just kind of fading away. And I said out loud, I said, God, I don't know how much longer I can handle this. Instantly, I'm out. And interesting that one of the first archangels you called in, Raphael and Michael. Well, Michael shows, and he was my personal escort into this what's like a boardroom, this most exquisite celestial boardroom, and 5 of these great masters in this council that I part of are sitting at the table. I get seated at this corner chair, and they all welcome me with open arms. It's just like this total homecoming celebration. And then they all go, okay, you're done. And you've done so much more than you've agreed upon for the lifetime. And so you're done. You can stay here with us and continue, or you can go back. It's total free choice. You do whatever you want to do. And the funny thing is, in that space, doesn't matter at all. I have no desires one way or the other. And so I'm looking at that and I says, oh, gee. Then I realized I'm surrounded by these incredible, magnificent beings of wisdom. I said, oh, good. I handed it back to them. I said, what do you guys think? Would it be of more benefit, not just to myself, but to anybody involved in my life, if I stay here and work from here, or if I go back and continue there? And instantly, they all unanimously said, if you go back, you'll do so much more benefit. So I said, okay, when you're not in pain, you're not experiencing any kind of pain or suffering or anything, it's easy to make that decision. Okay, send me back. And when they start to send me, Archangel Michael was going to escort me back to my body again. And on the way out of that conference room, I'm going, oh yeah, that's when I first became aware. I have this body down there and it's an excruciating, I would be experiencing this excruciating pain. I said, I'm going to need some help in the healing if I'm going to continue, because otherwise I would be good for no one. And then I hear this voice going, fine. It's very efficient in spirit. There's no chit chat. There's no sugarcoating of anything. It's just like, okay, whatever, fine. And when I pop back into the body, it's like the heart just goes on. And then I noticed I had so much more energy, and I still had the pain, but it wasn't at on my last breath kind of a thing. It's like, okay, I can handle this. And then the same voice that said fine is in my right ear going, go to your computer and look up uric acid. And which I said, hey, I could have a PhD in goutology by now. I know more about it than anybody else at the time. And this is just do it. So I go, and what it leads me to was the advertisement column, not the informational one. And that's where I found the very first thing that helped, and communication with the founder of that company who developed this, what do you call it, a herbal remedy, and who had it just as bad as I did. And we got to the emailing back and forth with him helped me an enormous amount. So anyway, that was the first one. And when I came, go ahead.
Sorry, Michael. And just so people know, like, it's like, why didn't the angels heal Michael and just let him be healed? Because Michael has a desire to teach, so he wanted to learn it firsthand. This is me, you know, from your lovely conversation with Karin. I'm just kind of giving people that understanding, because it can be like, why didn't the angels just heal him and, you know, make him whole? It's like, well, because Michael's a natural teacher. He wants to understand it so he can bring the teaching on, as opposed to just like me. I'd be like, nope, heal the body first. Heal the body first. I would be, you know, it wouldn't be the same conversation. So I just want to kind of let people know that. And then I also wanted to let Sharon or Linda hop in with a question before we go forward, just so, you know, everyone has a chance to ask you.
We have a question from the audience. And the question is, with all of the spirits that had passed over that didn't know they were spirits, why do you think their higher selves didn't clue in to what was going on and let them know?
That's a good question.
Great question.
It's not too different than, how come, you know, tons of people talk to God, right? They pray, they're desperate, they're trying to get some kind of answer, you know, help, please. and how come so few of those people feel like God responded or heard them, right? It's the same thing with your higher self. Your higher self is like mini God to you. It's your undying, eternal connection to God. The higher self never really comes into the body. When we first incarnate at birth, only the lower 1/3, so to speak, of the soul comes in to get the life started as a baby. And it takes generally about 7 years. So the first 7 years of the baby child, growing child's life is the feeling aspect of your soul self is the one that's running the body. And then from about 7 years old, the secondary part, the reasoning part of yourself as a soul, comes in and lands around the pineal gland. You're the third eye salon. Yeah. And starts to establish itself in this world, in your body, in this world. And then over the course of from 7 to about 21. It's interesting that 21 has become kind of the age of majority for so many cultures, is because that's about how long it takes that secondary reasoning self to kind of get in charge and have the know-how to run a life here. The higher self, or what's called the higher self, stays out above the head in the 8th chakra and is totally neutral. Just like that part of that aspect of God we call the absolute, that's transcendental. And humans can't have the experience of, I can't reach God. God's not listening to me. God's not getting involved in my life, right? Because it's not that God chooses not to or doesn't want to. It's just that you're not there. So the higher self has a similar relationship with the two other parts of our soul self that's operating in the physical body, in this physical time and space world, until the two lower parts get into alignment and communication, cooperation, and is starting to operate as one. And the reasoning self is able to reach the state of certainty, which really means certainty in spirit self, certainty in the higher self, if you will, that then the reasoning self steps aside, in a manner of speaking, from being intellectual. And then the person, the human, the soul in the incarnated part of the soul becomes totally intuitive, right? And so instead of using their intellectual reasoning aspect to figure everything out, which never works ultimately, except in technology, you can figure things out. But in spirit, you can't. Then you start to know everything. Whatever it is that you know, you ask a question, you know. And that is then the contact with your higher self. So even after leaving this physical world, it's how aware that soul that was living here, incarnated, became, that determines where they're at in spirit, in the spirit world, if you will. Not spirit as the eternal everything, but in the spirit realms. And that's where historically there's been all these ideas about seventh heaven, sixth heaven, fifth heaven, hell. Those are all different levels of consciousness that the human soul attains prior to death. And when they die, the highest level of their attainment of consciousness is where they reside until their next incarnation. Earthbound souls are those that they're so entrenched in the material life, the physical body. They believed they were nothing but the physical body, and that they were their desires. And, I want to eat food, I want to drink alcohol, I want to have sex, whatever it is. And that's their life. That's their whole consciousness. They can't even get high enough to reincarnate. That's why they haunt places. They roam around the earth plane, because to them, that's their reality, even though they're not here anymore on a physical level. And then all the way to the other end of it is the enlightened being. That's done. They don't have to come back unless they choose to.
So then to weave this into that question, you were there kind of as an intermediary, because those people were their level of consciousness couldn't connect to their higher self.
Absolutely.
So it was like they were in trauma, they were in shock, so they needed an intermediary, and your gorgeous giving soul came in just for that purpose, which is true. I mean, my heart was like, whoop, when you were talking about that. So is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, it's very accurate. And I think that's the original idea for ministers, priests, people like that, to be the intermediary, but it got misunderstood and translated and became a little bit different.
A little distorted. That makes total sense. Sharon, hop in.
Okay, thank you. So I have a kind of a two-part question, Michael, and thank you for sharing that with the little girl that was you. Do you think it was possible that you were chosen to go through that experience when you were small, that way you are more kind of closer to spirit, that type of thing? So as an adult, you may have not have remembered or understood how to help these spirits?
Oh, no, I chose to die as a child, to come in at that time and die as a child. And you'll find that there are many souls around, even now reincarnated at this present time. They did that in Japan at that time for a similar purpose. They did it during in Europe in the Holocaust with the concentration camps and everything else. All those times of intense human trauma. There's always souls that decide, okay, I'll come in to do that part, because that helps our growth as well. So in that lifetime, I chose to be a child. Yes, partly because I was closer to the spirit without being, going the other way. But also because I didn't want anyone who were left here grieving for my death, because that would have gotten in the way. So I kind of figured out the cleanest way to zip in, zip out, and get what I needed to do done, instead of having a long, prosperous life here and have people who really care about you here. And if you got just wiped out in a horrific kind of what most people would consider a horrific experience, it would devastate them. And so this way, my mom was gone in a flash.
Right.
Everyone I knew was gone in a flash.
Yeah.
So that was easy.
Thank you. And if I could ask quickly, I'm also a spirit rescuer. I love it. It's really some of my most heartfelt work that I love doing. And I heard your interview with Karen, and you said something about when you do spirit rescue, when you were help people with that, and also people that are stuck in well, I guess it's all the same thing, past lives, and because that it would be a past life to someone who's passed and they're stuck in that loop, because I see that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You said you removed the pictures of pain, and I was I hadn't heard that before, because I communicate with spirit intuitively when I'm helping them, and I learned in my near-death experiences to turn around. So I help them with turning around, taking their attention off the earth plane and just turn around. But I hadn't heard that removing pictures of pain. Do you mind explaining what that is a little bit?
Yes. Everything, every mystic, every enlightened being, somewhere along the way says, all of this is but a dream, right? It's an illusion. What does that mean? In today's language, it's like a video, a picture. And what's a video? Even digitized, digital video, there's frames. It's all movies, all videos are individual still shots connected together. And if you pass light through it and you see it projected on some kind of a screen in the right frequency or right speed, it looks like, like this, my hands are moving and this is real and the whole bit, but it's not. This is just a movie. I mean, even here on Zoom, it's just a movie. And what everyone sees is not who we are in physical life. It's our, fairly accurate representation of what we look like physically. Yeah? And so everything is that. And where are these movies? Where are these images held? Well, we're aware of it all the time, which means it's held in our awareness, which we call the mind, right? And unlike what most people think, hey, stay out of my mind, it's my business. Right? Mind is single. It just seems divided because each of us has the free will and the creativity to decide that, no, my mind is mine and your mind is yours, and never the twain shall meet. And don't look into my mind because that's my secret. It's my personal life. Oh, this is one of the things that a lot of people are afraid of, or being around a psychic. Oh my God, you're reading my mind. What I usually say is, why would I want to read your mind? I've had some great times with teenage boys. Oh my God, your mind is so dirty. I wouldn't want to even come close to it. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. And so when you have every human soul, every soul is like what do you call it? A photojournalist or a movie maker. Yeah, we're constantly taking pictures of every single moment of our experience, in the body, out of the body, wherever we are, we take pictures. And so then what we consider to be reality and things happening are all these pictures. This is why when somebody has an extremely traumatic pain, physically painful, you get injured, you get beat up, whatever, physically traumatic, painful experience, just like every other experience, you create an image in your mind. But because you almost died, it gets held in an unconscious, well, first it gets held in a part of your mind that holds survival information. I almost got killed. I almost died, barely made it. And it holds on to every moment of, there's a picture of every moment of that experience. And the very first moment when the initial pain experience happened to the consciousness, it holds it as a pain image. It's the image with the pain in it. The actual pain is in it. And it's physical pain, right? It's not emotional, and that comes later. Then this physical pain image, at the moment of impact, at the moment of pain, are you anywhere as spirit, anywhere near that body? No, you're long gone. It's like, I'm out of here, right? And that's part of the difficulty when we're in pain, is we're not present. We, spirit, is the life of the party, life of this body. So if most of that life goes out of the body because there's too much pain, and the being decides the pain is in the body because the body's bleeding or whatever, the pain is, and it feels like it's in the body, but it's never in the body itself, not the physical body. So when the spirit leaves the body, when we leave the body sufficiently, there's not enough of us in the life force to heal it, to be able to get through it. That's why it takes a very committed soul that says, okay, I don't care how much it hurts, I'm just going to get through this pain, right? That means they're coming into the body more instead of running away from it, and they start to heal. So the pain image is, since, from a perspective of helping someone else, spirit in the body or out of the body, it doesn't make any difference. It's still, they keep that image. That image, because when the pain is inflicted, the spirit pretty much leaves the body, which means the spirit is the consciousness. Without the consciousness, that picture is absent your awareness. That's why not only does the picture have pain, it's got your unconsciousness. So as a being, as you come back in, and your awareness and energy hits that picture, that part registers there's nothing there. That's why it's the more difficult picture to get to in the mind, like in meditation and stuff. Yeah, something has to trigger it and bring it out, so that even if you're consciously looking for it, it has to bring it out. But in someone else, you're not involved. Yeah. So especially out of the body in spirit, then if I go to that soul and they're stuck on that pain image, I can just go, okay, how about if I take this pain image out of you? But sometimes, a lot of times, the soul won't give you permission to do that. And that's their right.
I see.
So then why wouldn't some soul give someone who can help them with that, which will be enormous, why wouldn't they give permission for that person to do that? Generally because of guilt. They're punishing themselves. I don't deserve it. Yeah. Or the flip side of it is, I deserve to suffer, even after death. I was the bad one. I killed this person. I failed to do, whatever 10 zillion reasons people give themselves to stay in guilt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to flip in that, because with physical pain in the human body,
Yes.
like that's also, you were going through horrendous amounts of pain and you're like, God, and you popped out because it was just, you're no longer able to function. But I'm wondering, like, when people are encountering physical pain in the body, I mean, it's probably a many-fold answer depending on the person. I'm just wondering how consciousness and pain work together, because when we're in pain, we're just taught to medicate it. So that way you can have a normal life. If you're in pain, medicate the pain so you can have a normal life. And I'm wondering what the actual wise thing to do is in a situation, or the aware thing to do.
Well, that whole medicate mantra was a misinterpretation. Spirit was saying, meditate.
Yep.
And somebody didn't know how to spell. So the scribe said medicate. Oh, well. It's like celebrate and celibate, right? Anyway.
That's awesome.
So, but that's, we're in a very globally, we're in a really, really tough time, but also in a pivotal moment. Pivotal moment in global history time could be 100 years, but we're in an amazing point of transformation of consciousness, which is always, all transformation has to start with the transformation of consciousness. Until one becomes, whether it's an individual or a whole, race, until we become more aware of whatever, the truth, nothing's going to fundamentally change. So right now, in relationship to medication, that's why it's so big, vaccinate or not vaccinate, this, medicate or not medicate. Well, why it's not going to be either or is because those souls who believe their bodies way more, they might think there's a greater power and everything too, but basically I'm this person here, right? This right here. And when this goes, I'm gone. Or even a spiritually more aware person who recognizes, oh yeah, you don't end just because this person's dead. I'm going to come back as another person, right? Even then, they're going from lifetime to lifetime, birth to life, birth to death, each lifetime. I've had, umpteen number of lifetimes. I've been umpteen number of different people. That is even sufficient attachment to the body that, it's until even at that place of when there's so much pain and you don't know, nothing's worked and you can't seem to get out of it or get the pain out of you, you might need some kind of medication to tide you over. The only time that the medication becomes very detrimental is when you become totally dependent on it. Because instead of using it to tide you over until you could heal yourself of whatever the situation is, you just, okay, this has solved the problem, so I'm just going to keep on taking this. So this is a thing where a lot of spiritually oriented people are very antagonistic to medication, but they don't have to be. They don't have to take it. It's just that it's needed. And sometimes there does come a time when even the most spiritual of a person needs medication to tide them over until they can find other solutions. Yeah.
Very compassionate. Angela, I know you have a question. You want to hop in?
I do. I kind of piggybacking on the feeling of pain. There are a lot of spiritual teachers who teach about being aware of how you feel. And I know you've spoken about it in the past, but I think it would be beneficial for us all to hear it here is that there's a difference between that second chakra feeling and that fourth chakra feeling. So kind of expounding on the differences and being able to recognize the way you feel in relation to soul alignment.
Okay. Feeling. That was a pop song. Anyway, I mentioned earlier that it so much seems like the feeling is centered in the physical body, but it's really not. Where we actually feel that, have the experience and awareness of what we call feeling, from everything from sensation to emotional feeling, is in a much more subtle part of the body that's one whole step in from the physical. It's at a little bit higher level. And sometimes people call that etheric body or second body or something. But essentially, it's another, it's like those Russian nesting dolls, one inside the other. And it's the second one in from the outside. If the outside is the physical body, actual, and then the next one in is where we actually feel everything. That's why even in scientific studies, people have amputees often have had the phantom limb syndrome, where the physical limb is gone, but they still feel it, right? And what they're doing is they're not feeling it in the physical. That's gone, but they still feel it because it's in the etheric body. And that's what a major part of the nervous system is relating to. Yeah? And then you in the brain and everything, it seems like you're feeling everything on the physical body level. And that's part of the confusion of, if you're just treating the physical body, you can't get to that pain. Then, in terms of your question about the second chakra is the center of, for the psychic abilities, is the center of clairsentience, which is feeling clearly. And that's where we feel other people's emotionality and or even their pain and everything. The second chakra is like a home base for that second body as well. So that's where the direct sensational feeling is. The fourth chakra, people consider a lot of times, oh, I feel it in my heart. And they point to their chest. That's where the fourth chakra is, centered right here behind the sternum. And yes, that's a type of feeling, but it's a very, very different feeling than the second chakra feeling of feeling the energy of the sensation. The fourth chakra feeling is a feeling of affinity. Yeah. Whether it's a feeling of resonance, harmony. So you're using your fourth chakra to feel whether this energy is harmonic to me or not. So when we say, oh, I really like you, we're feeling this affinity, right? We're feeling this harmony. Me and you, I feel like we're on the same page on a feeling level. That's more the fourth chakra feeling. And the difference too, in terms of how we think about those feelings, is the second chakra is more direct. This is the energy I'm feeling. The fourth chakra would be much more, this is how I feel. This is how I feel about you. This is how I feel about what I'm doing. This is how I feel about the world situation. So that's different. The fourth chakra feeling is relational. The second chakra feeling is much more simple. It's just like, this is the energy I'm feeling. I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling sadness, those kind of things. Fourth chakra, I'm feeling my relationship, how I'm experiencing my relationship with whatever I'm feeling about. So that's the main difference in those two. And so then in psychic work and psychic development, and even spiritual development, a lot of people talk about, oh, you have to feel it. Well, that could go on for all kinds of things. But if you notice, something you just think about or somebody just talks about is a lot less, enormously less real than if you feel it, right? Why is that? In the process of creative manifestation, everything starts from the highest level of spirit, which is the creative. And as you bring that down through, you can call it the chakras, but down through the different levels of manifestation process, the final level is physicality. If you bring it all the way down to the physical body level and go boom, you've manifested something physical out of thin air. Yeah. But the second step before that, the final step before the actual physical manifestation of energy is on that second chakra level. So that's almost as real. It's the second chakra is the part that adds the reality factor into everything we put out into the world. Without that, you don't manifest on the physical end. And this is why a lot of people who do, what do you call those things?
Affirmations.
Vision boards. Yeah,
Vision
boards, right? They always talk about, okay, it's not just the image of your brand new house or your car or whatever, your soulmate, but you got to feel it. They're tapping into that awareness of, oh yeah, when you feel something, you make it that much more real. Now, the flip side of that is in spiritual awareness and psychic development. If you focus on, you have to feel it, you have to feel it, you have to feel it, and you don't really know what that means, and you use your second chakra to feel everything, it keeps you down almost at the physical body level, and it holds you down so you can't raise your awareness to a higher, much higher level of spirit. But in the beginning, when somebody's just starting to learn about their developing their psychic abilities, they need to make it real. Because to them at that point, the body is what's real and energy isn't. So if they learn to feel it, oh, whoa, I felt that. That's almost as real as my physical, I could almost touch it. Then they start to have certainty in there's more to it than just the physical. So for that purpose, it's perfect. But they have to grow out of that to get to the higher levels of consciousness. So consciousness rising goes up from the bottom to the top in the body. And then creative manifestation goes from the top to the bottom. And both are going on at the same time.
Oh.
Great explanation.
Yeah, I feel like there's the more I hear you speak, the more I'm like, I know nothing. Linda, I know you had a question. Did you want to hop in?
I do. It's a very simple question with probably a very complex answer. I'm not sure. Maybe you can simplify the answer for us. What is the purpose of the pain in the first place? Why do we experience emotional and physical pain on this planet? In this
pain is basically the experience of absence. And contrary to the popular adage that the absence makes your heart grow fonder. Yes, that's true to a certain extent, but it's the pain of separation, right? It's the pain of absence. So that's the experience we call, ouch, that hurts in whatever way. If you go down to where is it coming from, is we're experiencing, everything's energy. So every experience we have is some sort of and some pattern of energy. And so then when we're experiencing pain, part of the challenge is it's so intense that we make it not only real, but we make it a thing. We call it pain. I'm in pain. This hurts. And what are we talking about? This. We're pointing to usually some part of the body or something, and some event, and making that separate from everything else and saying, this thing is killing me. So we just make it worse and worse and worse because we're taking what's kind of a figment of our imagination, energy experience of something being arbitrarily separated out from the whole. And that separation is what we're experiencing as painful. And then we make it more separate by saying, this is what's the pain. This is the pain. This is, like that. And what needs to happen for us to get out of the pain is remind ourselves of, oh yeah, I'm not separate. Yeah, I'm spirit. I'm whole. I'm undivided. That's my natural state, is undividedness. The separation is only imagined. Imagine meaning we made a picture of it in our mind, right? Back to the thing when I was answering Sharon, that when you get out of the body as spirit because you experience this pain, you separate yourself from what? This idea, this picture you call pain, but it's really not. If you really take a look at pain and get to the source of it, you find it's nothing. It's actually nothing that you made into a picture of something. And the mind is very powerful. You're very powerful. The picture itself doesn't do anything. But when we put our creative power into that picture, even a few drops of creative power into that picture, our power is so creative and so powerful, it makes it like full-on, bigger than life reality. And we experience that and we go, oh, I can't handle this. Yeah.
So
not only that, but we don't want the pain. So instead of getting to the truth beyond what the pain is and being free of it, we cover it up. And what do we cover it up with? We cover it up with everything, anything we can throw at it. So we cover it up with, I don't like it. I got to get out of this. We make all these images that's not part of the experience. And we plaster it on top of the image of the experience, which the image of the experience isn't the experience itself. It's a record of the experience. That's what we keep in the Akashic records, is just a record of all of our life experiences. So we instantly make an image record, we call memory, of the traumatic pain experience. And then we blame the experience for the pain. Yeah? So there's a pain picture on top of the experience picture. And then we make a bunch of judgment pictures about that. Oh, this was horrible. It nearly killed me. Those aren't true. That's just what I put on top of that pain after the fact. And then over a course of a lifetime or even few years, we keep on adding to it because these pictures are all vibrations. So let's say you run across somebody at a party and you get into communication and everything, and that person starts to talk about an experience they had in their childhood that's totally matches yours vibrationally. Yeah. So when that happens, all of a sudden you're going through pain. Or this is what happens where some people, they see the sight of blood and they throw up. What just happened? That doesn't happen to everybody, But for some people, it's really violent. It's really intense. Well, in their survival mind, part of the mind, unconsciously, they're holding all these images, which ultimately has pain, and they see the blood, and that image of what they're seeing matches up with the vibration of an image that they went through, the image of an experience that they went through that had pain and all the judgments. Oh, this is horrible, and blah, blah, blah. I can't stomach it, all that kind of stuff. And so they throw up, and they just can't handle the sight of blood.
So I wanted to ask you, because
Yes.
in terms of people experiencing, chronic pain, my dad had bad knees, I have bad knees, and or things that just show up. Someone has glaucoma out of nowhere. They don't have it in their family, but they have glaucoma.
Mhm.
So it's like, I'm wondering how that shows up from other lifetimes. It's like these, genetics are also memories as well. Like genetics are something that we barely understand on this dimension, I would say. But like there's pain and stories about pain in your genetics, or, and also from your other lifetimes. And it's like, the thing is to not, again, that thing of like wanting to get rid of the pain as opposed to be with it so it can finally show you what it's needing. Does that sound accurate, or what would you say about that?
I'm not quite sure of the question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So
are you still on the purpose of the pain kind of thing?
Yeah, like, isn't the pain there to try to reconnect you? Like the pain is saying, hey, here's where you're disconnected. Here's an opportunity to reconnect.
Yeah, the pain's not actually saying that, but it's up to us to use it that way, right?
Okay.
So it's like, what's the purpose of suffering? Huh? None. We're not meant to suffer. So, and I'm sure unless you were psychotic, none of us would say, oh, I prayed for suffering. I wanted to suffer more, right? Please, God, let me suffer more. No, we don't do that. Nobody does that. Yet, everybody's heard, ask and you shall receive, right? Ask and it shall be given to you. If none of us ever asked for pain and suffering, why do every single one of us, if we're human, we've had at least a few painful experiences that we suffered through, right? So there must be a purpose for pain and suffering, but there isn't. But we need to use the pain and suffering as breadcrumbs, leading us up back to our true state of being, which doesn't have any pain or suffering, right? We don't have to create pain and suffering for any reason at all, but we do. Why? Because if we're here incarnated, we separate it. There's definitely a major separation in our mind. So what is life? You could say, what's the purpose of life here? For each and every one of us, each of us will go through incredibly different experiences getting to that, but we're here to learn to die correctly. And once you learn how to die correctly, basically that's called enlightenment. You don't die. And you don't have to come back here because you're no longer separate. The journey here, the school of this world is for the soul to incarnate because they've separated themselves from God, if you will, from the whole, and through all these life experiences that are breadcrumbs back to wholeness. So we're all here to heal ourselves back to the total state that we already are forever, but we don't know that. That's the tricky part, is it's not something we do to ourselves to make ourselves whole. No. If we do that, we make ourselves less whole. We make ourselves more separate in the name of trying to be more unique or different or reinvent myself or whatever. But the truth of it is we're already whole. How come we think we're not? How come we're so convinced we're not okay? More than okay.
Let me flip this back on you, because when you had uric acid surging through your body and you were in horrific pain, I mean, that's a major experience of separation.
Yes.
And so how do you, so there was no point to that suffering, there was no point to that pain, but you were experiencing it
Yes.
as I would call it an enlightened being. So how does that work? Like there was no point to it?
All of us in spirit are enlightened. But what we call about waking up is we have to become aware of that. So awareness is an amazing thing. Awareness is, what we call that aspect of our total beingness. But most of us are aware of certain things. At any given point, we're aware of this, that, and the other thing. But we have to become aware that we are aware. That's called giving yourself space to be who you truly are. You are that awareness, right? So then, in my personal experience of that pain, what happened? Well, I was in so much pain. I'm talking to God saying, I don't know how much I can handle this. Total separation. And because of the pain, I'm not coming into that body. It's so much easier to leave, right? So I'm not even in the tilting point, the tipping point. I'm way past that. I'm mostly in spirit already and going, hey, I don't know how to handle this. And then they took me out. So it's called ask and it shall be given. And they said, okay, you can go all the way out or you can go back because you don't have to be there. All right. So then the experience of pain, yes, it took me quite a long time, layers of stuff that I experienced as pain in the body. And that ranges from first, I took the pattern from my teacher during the final years of his kind of getting ready to die and everything. And he had gout pretty severely. But at that time, people knew less about gout than when I had it, right? So actually, he was in the middle of not being able to breathe because he had a condition called asbestosis during the war, and he was in the Navy, and he had to work in the naval shipyards, which was full of asbestos at that time, right? So basically, he breathed asbestos every day for a couple of years. And so in his later years, in his 60s, it really became where he had trouble breathing. And one night, like 11 o'clock at night, he's like about a two-hour drive from where we lived. And he calls and he's kind of in bad shape. He's saying, I can't breathe. And there's no one here to help me. Could you come up and give me a healing? And I said, sure. Got on my car. And it was this dark and stormy night. It was pouring rain. And I arrived and they had put up one of those security fences, cyclone fences that's way up, I guess about 12 feet high, 13 feet high, and all around the property. And he's not responding to my buzzer to let me in the gate. So I knew it was pretty bad. He probably was unconscious at least. And so I climb over the fence, and I thought I found it's all dark and pouring rain. I thought I found a good place to jump down on. Well, one foot landed on solid ground, but the other foot went down a hole. And I heard my ankle snap. It didn't break. It just was a severe sprain. I mean, and oh, yes, I experienced pain. And it took me a little while to gather myself, but I made it. No, I'm just in pain. This guy's dying. All right. So I hobble my way up to his house from there and see him lying on the floor. And so I get in and I prop him up and he's still breathing and everything. And I start to, and they're out in the boonies on a ranch. And so I start to give him a healing. I gave him a healing all night long, the rest of the night. And I found some air tanks from his wife, who was a scuba diver, and a regulator, stuck it in him and forced air. And so we got that going. And by morning, he was going, okay, the worst is over. I feel better. And so I thought, okay. And he says, yeah, you better go and get some sleep and everything. And so I went back home and it was 2 years. Oh, and I worked on my ankle and everything. And miraculously, it was like I never had it. But 2 years later, on my 40th birthday, everybody's in the backyard. I get a phone call from my teacher, and he's just telling me, sorry, he's not going to be able to make it to my birthday party because he wasn't doing so well. And we talked for a little while. And when I finished the conversation and got up to walk, is that same ankle just went, and it didn't hurt that much. I mean, it was just a little, but that night is when I had my first gout attack. So that's where I started in the healing process. Is okay, that's where it started. So I really dug in and started to take out all the places where I took on his condition that he was having. But because the more urgent situation was his breathing, so I didn't pay attention to what this thing was. That it looked pretty bad, but I had no knowledge of it at that point. And so then, and of course, I was in great pain, not in the body, right? I could do healing from out of the body, no problem. But healing my body level, it was not happening, and I wasn't aware of it. And so a couple of years later, I had to kind of dig through and get all that out, and it got a lot better, but it went deeper because you don't take on, healers are notorious for taking on other people's problems, right? I haven't met a healer who doesn't do that. It's just we have to learn how not to do that more and more. And at that time, I knew that. And so I started to look, but you'd never take on anything from anybody unless you have resistance in you, unconscious resistance. So I dug in to see what the resistance was. And then it went to other lifetimes, a collection of all, over the course of years, I had to dig deeper and release the collection of past life traumas and upsets and everything like that. And ultimately, this is where forgiveness comes in, right? Times where ultimately all forgiveness boils down to being able to forgive yourself. We might think we're blaming somebody else, but underneath it, you're always going to find you're blaming yourself first. If you don't blame yourself first, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to think about blaming anybody else. Right? There's nothing to blame. We blame other people to try to get away from the pain of blaming and punishing ourselves. And why do we ever blame ourselves for anything? Oh, it's called this thing called guilt and responsibility, right? Regret. So when I start to dig down deeper and deeper, that was just a beginning point. And there's lifetimes of being a healer, and a major one of the major ones was coming across a lifetime when I was a physician, and I was considered kind of as a physician, not a spiritual healer, but as a physician, I was considered kind of a miracle healer, because every worst case scenarios came and they got well, except when my family, when my wife and 2 kids got ill. Nothing I can do. Didn't change a thing. So that was a major thing. And then after I start to be able to, forgive myself for that and clear that out and let that all go, then I found on a large scale, another lifetime, I was a physician during the, one of the bubonic plagues in Europe. And that's when I found out, people grabbing me in total desperation on my ankles as I'm walking down the street and saying, please, please, put me out of my misery. It's kind of the opposite. They knew they were a goner, that nobody can help them, cure themselves, but they wanted somebody to kill them. And I couldn't bring myself to do that. So yeah, all kinds of
Yeah, I mean, it just makes me go, oh, this is endless, and it's always going to be about becoming more and more and more awake. Sharon, hop in with your question.
Yes, thank you. So going back to maybe the purpose of pain or why we feel pain, that type of thing with Linda's question, I always understood that we come here to experience everything there is to experience, lifetime after lifetime, and that we're adventurers, we are explorers, that type of thing in physical form. So what would you say, Michael? Maybe you could speak to this, that maybe the reason for pain is to experience it, but to get through it and heal it as quickly as possible. But because of our frequency or denseness on where we were, I don't think we're in 3D anymore, especially not right here, but that we tend to get stuck in the pain and in the circumstances and that type of thing. So we create those pictures and that programming within ourselves so that we can't move on to something else and experience that and get through it as easily and with grace as much as possible. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's the thing about spirit, and we're spirit, is spirit has this incredible ability to take any experience and use it for healing, use it for enlightenment. And so the ultimate healing is enlightenment, where you truly realize yourself, truly realize God, truly realize the whole of life. And so the purpose of all of our experiencing, you're right, we're here to experience, but not just experience randomly anything, but each one of us has very unique experiences. We share a lot of similar experiences, of course, but we also have it in different ways, and we can compare notes, but we have different experiences. And that's because each and every one of us, every experience we have is for the purpose of getting to the truth, for the purpose of enlightenment, for the purpose of freeing ourselves from believing in all of this stuff and becoming it, and getting back to our real roots, if you will. And that's the same with, how come all of a sudden there's so many near-death experiences? Well, there's always been near-death experiences, but they didn't have YouTube and Zoom and mass publishing and all that for a long time. And but I do think that there's a lot more people having near-death experiences now than ever, because humanity's ready for, okay, let's start to look at this. What's death about? And if you came back, well, either it wasn't real or there's a reason for it. But ultimately, it's everything here we experience is for our learning, And all that we're learning is learning to get to know ourselves. And the final exam of really knowing ourselves is to live, be here as who we are. So that's both the pop quizzes we get along the way. Every time we learn something, we get to live it in 3D. Unless we do, we're not done, right? So people think, oh, once you hit nirvana in meditation, you're fine, you're finished. No, that's just a halfway point. Then you have to come back here to live it, live what you learned, live what you experienced. And generally that probably the fastest, easiest way to do that is teaching. Communicating, teaching, guiding people so that they could start to experience more of it.
I wanted to ask you, because this is kind of connected to the whole suffering and pain thing. And we haven't even gotten to your other NDEs, but we've got Michael rebooked already for March 6th because I was like, I know that we're not going to be able to get through all we want to get through. So Michael's coming back in a month to today. But you know, like right now, I mean, there's always been these hooks out there for the mind to say, you know, we're separate from you. You believe this, I believe that. I have the facts. I can prove you wrong. I've got the truth. You don't. You've been misguided. You have misinformation. And so that's just been so much more like pushed out in our current situation. And I'm just wondering, how do we, because therein lies the obstacle course to come back to yourself and not get caught into the hooks. And I'm great at getting caught into those hooks. And so I'm just wondering, what is your wisdom or advice about that, to be able to see the dissonance in the world and observe it, but not pick a side and prove your truth? Because that just seems like you're creating more separation.
Yes.
Even though your heart is in the good place, you want to help people, you're actually creating more separation.
Exactly. So prove it. I don't believe in prove it in any which way, because anyone who needs you to prove it or wants you to prove it, you're not really going to be able to prove it to, other than the only way someone can prove it is if the person seeking the proof experiences it for themselves. No amount of talking, no amount of demonstration is really going to do it. Even if it's like a demonstration can wow somebody, it's like, okay, well, that was a fluke. So prove it. Why would somebody want proof? Whether they're a skeptic going, okay, I don't believe any of this is hogwash, and prove it. Or a person is sincerely interested in, like, if only I can have some proof, tangible proof, then I'll be interested, or whatever. Doesn't matter. If a person is seeking proof on any level, it's because, well, we've been talking about pain so much. They're in pain, right? And they don't want to get hurt again. They've vowed to themselves in this arena, whether it's a love relationship or finances, or, it doesn't matter what it is. I am not going to allow someone to hurt me again. And so they cover it over, and then they build up this big titanium wall of, okay, prove it means exactly what you said. It creates the separation. But behind every prove it, there's both competition and judgment, right? So judgment, the only purpose for judgment is separation, to further the separation. We already got pain, so we're separating, but we want to keep the separation or make it bigger, then we add judgment to it. And then if we want to make it even bigger, we add blame to that judgment. And it's your fault that, I'm in this mess. So the separation, just like you said, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what we're seeing in the world today. is we were getting to see on the internet, on TV, in the front yard, whatever, we're getting to see how big that rift has been. It's not nothing. This is what we're seeing is nothing new. It's been building up for millennia. But people are waking up. And there's so much more awareness globally. You might not notice it because when people are diligently working on becoming more aware, they're at such a higher level of awareness, they look at nothing's happening down there. But it's not, it's true. It's when you're thinking about practically 8 billion people, incarnated souls here, if each person becomes like, a quarter of an inch more aware, a little tiny bit more aware, that's still a lot more awareness across the planet. And that vibration affects all of us at wherever we are. And so we go through these same growth patterns and cycles, except it looks very different on the outside because we're at different places in our consciousness. But it's the same growth period. It's the same lesson we're all going through.
Yeah, it seems like it's exacerbated for the purpose. I mean, perhaps this is me speculating. I claim to know nothing at this point. But like, it seems that perhaps it's exacerbated for the intensifying of like, get out of the matrix. Like you can keep fighting in the matrix. Another word, the holographic experience, whatever you want to call it. You can either keep fighting or you can transcend, but here's a pressure point. So it really does encourage you to transcend as opposed to keep getting stuck in it. Because if you keep getting stuck in it, it's feeling worse and worse and worse. That's my reflection. Does that sound accurate or on
Yes,
par?
it's basically boils down to resistance. Resistance is futile. I guess that's not from Matrix, but that's from Star Trek. Yes, resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. And yeah, that's actually would make a great bumper sticker. It's very profound because yes, resistance is futile. But what is anyone resisting ultimately is being assimilated, right? But not assimilated by some, Borgs or whatever, aliens or anything, assimilated by the totality, assimilated by spirit, assimilated by the light, if you will, assimilated by that which has absolutely no division, no separation in it. It's eternal, it's infinite, has no beginnings and endings. And what is afraid of that? That's what we call the ego. If we want to give it a word, and the ego is nothing. It really is nothing trying to be something. Or more accurately, ego is nothing trying to survive as something. So all survival comes from the ego. It's not the body has to survive. Yes, the body has to survive, but it's the ego driving it that puts one into survival. I'm not going to make it. So that doesn't necessarily mean my body's going to die. It's just, I'm not going to make it in my business. I'm not going to make it in my relationship. I'm not going to I'm not going to be a rock star, whatever it is. And that's the ego going, hey, if I'm not continuing to make a lot of noise and be something and convince everyone that I am something, that I do exist, I'm not going to make it because I'm nothing.
Wow. That's so much of a lecture or a talk right there. What the ego actually, how is the ego nothing yet we all have egos?
Yeah.
And so I have that little thing out there. How is the ego nothing yet we all have egos? And then what is your hot tip, your practice on when The ego, which is nothing, is like, ooh, separation. I love it. I'm on the side of justice and truth, and you're not. Like, how do we go, ooh, oh, that's a game. That's a game. How do we unhook ourselves from that and be able to come back into our organic resonance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's very simple. Ego's dead giveaway. It always talks in terms of either or. Either, if I'm right, you're wrong. Either or, right? Either you got to do this or die. It's always either or. Spirit, on the other hand, always communicates in terms of both and more. Yeah. It's because spirit is undivided, which means inclusive. If you're undivided, you can't be exclusive. Because the minute you're exclusive, you're dividing yourself. I'm good, but you're bad, right? That's exclusivity. So the ego is completely exclusive. Hey, you better choose either this, either me or them, right? And so only one of us could be right. Only one of us is better. And I don't know, only one of us is the best, all that kind of stuff. So anytime in your own mind you hear some form of a dichotomy, this or that, and not only the dichotomy, everything in this world is made of dichotomies. So that's fine as far as the world's concerned. But the ego is what's driving one's consciousness to choose this over that. That keeps us separate. That keeps us continuing to be divided within our own selves. And we make it even worse by dividing us against them out there. Whereas if you hear that, if you kind of think that, feel that way, then step back and become Switzerland, be neutral, right? Okay, sure, I vote in elections and everything, but before I do, I have to be neutral. I'm not starting off on against something. That's the other thing. The ego always either or means if you're for something, you got to be against something else, right? So then if you become neutral and you look at, okay, this is division, so that's ego. What's whole? What kind of decision can I make that is going to promote the healing, promote moving toward wholeness, even if we don't instantly become totally whole? But what's going to get me closer to the wholeness rather than further away? Then you never go wrong. Whatever decision you make, the initial decision that's the most important before any other decision is deciding which way you're going to go, ego's way or spirit way, the undivided or the divided, the limitless or the limited. So whatever way you want to look at the difference between unlimited and limited, or divided, undivided and divided. And anytime you choose the undivided, no matter what else you do after that decision, you haven't decided if you're going to turn left or right yet, when you're driving along. But if you first choose the undivided, and once you validate the undivided, and from that space, you choose to go left or right, either way is going to be fine. It's the ego that tries to convince everyone one way is the only way that's right, and the other way you pay. And
go ahead,
yeah.
Sorry.
And that way you end up believing that, oh, yeah, if it turns out this way, you're paying. I've paid a lot of times, but my experience of it was, oh, I only paid this much instead of everything. I got off cheap, right? It's like that. When you follow the wholeness, then even when you have to go through challenges because of karmic reasons or because of blah, 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 whatever it is, it's like you're grateful for all that you didn't have to go through. It wasn't worse. It was only a scratch instead of getting your arm chopped off. So it's like that.
Yeah, there's a world of liberation if you're coming from a place of wholeness or unity or connectedness, and then make your choice, because you're not acting against, you're just acting from. And so if I want to make sure I heard this correctly, ego is either or, spirit is this and more. Is that right?
Yes, in a sense. That's an easy way to remember it, right? That's a bumper sticker, a t-shirt.
100%.
That's what, both Buddha talked about it in terms of the middle way or middle path. Yeah, the middle path. Jesus talked about it in the straight and narrow, right? What does that imply? Oh, the middle, the straight and narrow is right, neutrality, right in the middle. You're not polarized one way or the other.
So I wanted to talk, we have like the 15 minutes left, and I wanted to ask you real quick here. Because when we were talking in our pre-show the other day, we were talking about how time is speeding up, and and I think again, like we're in this, like I'm saying, it's a pressure cooker where you really have the opportunity to the momentum is there to step out and then to not be in duality if you so choose it, or to not at least be reacting in duality. And so I'm wondering how time is speeding up. Some people call it the quickening, some people call it new earth, whatever label you want to slap on top of that, and how the kids coming in now are really here to get a lot done because of things being so fast. If you would kind of elaborate that and say, why are things quickening? Why is there so much more opportunity to get things done? How do you experience and know that? What's your experience?
Well, yes, it's, time is, of course, relative, right? There's no time in spirit because there's no relativity in spirit. Relativity only happens when there's in two-ness, not oneness, right? So unless there's a division, there's no time. And our experience here of time is definitely speeding up. Not only everything's happening faster, but time itself seems to be, my experience is I wake up, I brush my teeth, and it's time to go to bed again. It's almost that crazy. It's like, whoa, am I just getting old and slow and decrepit? And so everything seems like, I'm just getting ready here to start the day and it's already over. But that seems to be most people's experience these days. It's just zipping by. A day just goes by like it was, a couple of hours. That's just our experience. Relative to what? Well, when awareness steps up, energetically, energy steps up. It's the vibration gets finer, faster, higher frequency. It's vibrating faster and faster and faster. And see, when I go faster and faster on Zoom, my hand starts to disappear. And that's what it feels like, as time is disappearing. Oh, what does that mean? As the overall collective consciousness is becoming more aware, more awake, what are we being more awake to? Of spirit, timelessness. So everything, the time is seemingly disappearing. It's not only on a technological level or technical physical level, it's things are happening faster, but that's the experience of becoming more aware of no time, aware of eternity, which is no time, right? And so then on a body level, that experience of less and less, no time means I have no time. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for this. And that could be both on a positive level toward more healing, where if you've been diddle-daddling on stuff that's not necessary or stuff that's even destructive to you, you come to the awareness, I don't have time for this. It's a waste of time. So you drop it, or you start to commit yourself to healing yourself so that you don't have to be addicted to this or that or a bad habit or whatever. And you just become more yourself. But if we're in a rush and we're hurry up and get something done and hurry up, and we're being slave to this arbitrary experience of time, then we might feel like I'm running out of time. My deadline is in 3 minutes and I'm not ready yet, like that, and freak out. So those experiences may seem very, very different, but it's really about the same thing. But it's also our experiences relative to where we are in our awareness, in our vibration, in relationship to what's going on out here in the world. So that's the quickening. We're getting closer. Everyone's awareness is getting closer and closer to no time. It's just our interpretation that make it seem bad or good or indifferent.
This feels kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah.
There's Raphael. You do look like an angel.
She is.
Purple background.
It feels like that process of the things that just no longer serve falling away. That's what this time is.
Yes. Yeah. Just dropping the dross.
Yeah, I can see why that. I think. Oh, go ahead, Linda. Sorry.
I was just going to say that part of this too, I think, is, and this is a thing for part 2 when you come back, is the purpose of that initial separation. What was that purpose? And then as we go back into the wholeness, the resistance to that creates that separation, that anxiety, the worry, versus the awareness and acceptance creates that non-resistance and less stress, less, it just, when you hear go with the flow, that flow is that awareness and that acceptance without the agendas that we have made from, I think, more of the, I'm trying to think of the word, the agendas that we're getting from judgment and expectation.
Yeah, it's yes, we whirl and twirl a lot in our lives about nothing. And that really goes back to the same thing about the ego is really nothing, but that's what we whirl and twirl about and tear our hair out and see a lot less hair now. Yes. So yeah, that'll be good. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things that I didn't even get to, but I feel like this story about, I feel like unpacking pain and unpacking suffering is huge right now, because there are so many people who've been in it, myself included, and being able to have a space for that conversation versus kind of new age overing it, where you're just like, oh, we don't address that. We don't, that's not real. So we're not encountering the benefit from it, because it's another form of medication. You can medicate yourself with spirituality just as good as anything else.
Yeah, actually, even better.
Because you look so good doing it. So at this point, hey, Michael, so do you have, before we start our wrap up, do you have anything going on that you want to invite the community to? Any online courses, any seminars, anything that you're doing that people should know about? Yes,
Raphael knows everything.
She says one moment, she said, you caught me off guard. Give me a second. She's got to grab her stuff.
Oh, it wasn't the Archangel Raphael that makes the announcements. That's Gabriel, right?
Gabriel, yeah, the
messenger. I'm supposed to be the healer, right? Okay, so on Saturday and Sunday, February 26th and 27th, we have a 4 teleclass series over the weekend, which includes a bonus Zoom get together at the end. And this whole series, you can attend one or all four. If you attend all four, you get a discount. But if you attend even one, you can come to the bonus Zoom afterwards. And the title of this weekend is Your Path to Freedom, Your Psychic Development, and Following Your Inner Spirit Guidance. And each of the teleclasses have their own title, and they're really fun. And I'm not going to read them all off, but you can go to our website, michaeltamura.com, and go to our event section, and you can read all about it. Michael has a write-up for everything. And there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, which is we have an ongoing series called You Might Be More Psychic Than You Think, Developing Your Soul Abilities for Your Spiritual Growth and Living Your Soul Purpose. And we're starting a new 7-week round of this with the theme of You Are a Creative Being, Energy Work for Creatively Expressing Who You Are in the World. And the first class, which is on Saturday, March 5th, is You Are a Creative Being, Energy Work for Making Space for Your Creativity. Michael is an expert on creativity. I have learned so much from him being with him over all these years about working with creativity when you have, let's say, major life challenges. And it's very, very effective and wonderful. And of course, it's energy work. So you'll really enjoy this if you're like us and love to work with energy. So that is what we invite all of you to, michaeltamura.com. You see how he spells his name? You just do that, all is one word. That's our website. My name is too hard to spell, so we can just include his name.
And we've got their links all down below, everyone. So they're down in our description box, as well as Angela's links and Sharon's links as well. So we're all linked. Isn't that the truth? So let me toss the mic over to Linda, and I'll let you begin our thank yous.
Well, I first want to thank our wonderful guests, because without you, we wouldn't be here. Well, we'd be here, but we wouldn't be here. So, thank you all for coming. Thank you for those who have attended online. As always, you ask amazing questions, and I look forward to seeing you all on our next session together. And thank you again for joining our Facebook group and continuing our discussions there. So go to Third Eye Salon, again, down in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for being here and adding so much energy to this. So come join us at the Facebook group. Thank you for the coffees. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And when I say that, I'm not saying it lightly. Make sure that you actually share this with people who need to hear it. Okay? And I love everybody here. Let's all have our Brady Bunch. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I forgot to do Brady Bunch.
Brady Bunch time.
Okay, so I got the gallery view on so everyone can see us. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, I missed a couple of tricks today. I forgot to ask people to like the video. So I think we've had so much great conversation, but if you give us a thumbs up, it does help the video reach more people because of algorithms. So that is fantastic. And then next week, we're having John Mathis back on. We had him on last month. But again, we were talking with him so much, we didn't actually get to his NDE because he had so many other interesting stories. So we're having John Mathis back next week. And I also want to thank our lovely co-hosts. Of course, Linda, where would I be without you? Angela, Sharon, and Raphael and Michael. What an absolute blessing to just be vibing with you all. It's just tremendous.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It was great to be with you, and looking forward to our next round.
Yeah.
A
month from today. So it'll be March 6th. So, all right. Love y'all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.